We got a new Stephen King adaptation in theaters right now. I've already done a spoiler-free review of The Long Walk if you want to check that out. This video is for all of the spoilers, both the movie and the book. I'm going to go into detail, including the ending, about both of them. If you don't want to hear that, get out of here. Very brief, spoiler-free summation of my thoughts. I really enjoyed the movie. It was very effective, emotional. We had great actors portraying these characters. They had excellent chemistry with each other. I thought it adapted a story that could be difficult to adapt, considering it's all just walking, quite well. And there were also a few changes that surprised me, and some that I'm still unsure about. So we're going to talk about a lot of those changes. Before we get to the ending and the really big stuff, we got to set the stage a little bit with our main characters, Ray Garrity, played by Cooper Hoffman, and Pete McVries, played by David Jonsson. So in the book, Ray doesn't really know why he has joined the walk. He doesn't know what he's going to wish for if he wins. And the movie version has a little more going on. I actually prefer the movie version. I thought Cooper Hoffman was really good, and I like what they added to Garrity's character. Very early on, we see that he has this baseball that he's carrying with him on the walk, and this turns out to be his father's. In the book, all we know is that his father spoke out against the Long Walk, against the government, and he was rounded up by the squads and killed. We hear about that, and that's pretty much it. In the movie, we see it, and there's extra detail. We see that his father was actually grabbed in front of his wife and son and given the chance to denounce the things that he had previously said and swear his loyalty to the state, and he refuses to do so. Even though doing so would save his life, he feels the better message to impart onto his son is that he should stick true to his values even in the face of death. And Ray has kind of kept that with him. He admires and respects his father, and his plan, if he wins the Long Walk, is that he is going to wish for one of the soldiers' carbines. He's going to ask for the gun right on the spot as soon as he wins and use it to kill the major as revenge for his father and as just cutting the head off the snake of this corrupt government. So I thought that was interesting as a way to give Ray more drive, something that he has to work for here. And then on the other hand, you have McVries, who in the book has a whole completely different backstory about how his girlfriend gave him the scar on his face, this whole deal with how they were working at the factory and he wasn't that good at his job and they were arguing about money. It's completely different. And it's kind of outdated in certain ways, so I understand why they changed it. In this one, he lost his parents at a young age. He had a really rough life, wandering from place to place, getting in fights, surviving any way that he could, eventually messed with the wrong guy, got the cut on his face and one over here on his torso, was hospitalized, and from that point on decided that he was going to try to turn his life around, look for the light in life, look for the bright side, enter the Long Walk with the hope of using his wish and his reward in order to make things better for the world if he can. And so I like this because you have the contrast between the two. Garrity has been angry ever since his father killed. He's the one who's talking down on the Long Walk more than any other. He's the one talking about how it's not really a choice and they're kind of manipulated into this. And I like how the movie went into more detail about that. And he's got murder on the mind, even though would that fix anything? Would they just replace the major with another guy? Would he end up dying? They're not entirely sure because as the winner, you have like somewhat protected status and it's uncharted territory, but he could at least potentially die. And McVries calls him out for this. He says, your dad left you behind. Why is that a good thing? Wouldn't it be better if he was here to help you? And now you want to potentially get yourself killed and leave your mother behind? Really? Is that the best thing you could possibly do? He wants to use his money for good. He says if he has one wish, he would try to get the Long Walk changed in at least a subtle way that might be plausible that they might let him do it, that he would allow for 2 winners, so people on the walk would at least have a little more hope that one of their friends could survive too. And I love that monologue from David Jonsson. I believe it was after Ray almost got himself killed trying to hug his mom, which was a tearful moment on its own. You just see how his mind has completely broken and she's terrified for her son. She's looking at his bloody feet, and David Jonsson is just so good here, and all this that he goes into, telling him about his scar and his view on life and how he needs to work towards living and loving. And I thought that was really nice, and I like how the movie contrasted those themes and made it not just about who would win the walk, but which ideology would win out in the end, viewing the light or the darkness. That's all very much stuff that the movie added, and I liked it a lot. Next up, we have to talk about Scram. If you've only watched the movie, you're like, who the hell is Scram? Scram is a character in the book. He's this really friendly southern guy. He's really big and physically fit. He's actually the favorite to win the long walk. The betting odds are on him. And for a good while, he seems to be handling it really well, but he ends up getting sick. He develops pneumonia, which eventually takes him out. He's also married. He's the only member of the group who's married, and the other boys decide that whoever wins, they will try to help Scram's wife however they can. Now, clearly, while Scram was not in the movie, his attributes were divvied up among two other characters. The wife was given to, was it Olsen? I believe so, but it doesn't even really matter because that was kind of an afterthought in the movie. I felt like that's one area where they definitely dropped the ball. Scram's story is one of the more emotional parts of the book, and I thought it was a missed opportunity not to have him. Instead, I think it was Olsen, after he was already dead, they mentioned, oh, by the way, he told us he had a wife. Oh, we should do something to help her. Yeah, sure. It was very tacked on. That was one area where I think they could have done better. The pneumonia, on the other hand, they give to Stebbins. And at the beginning of the movie, when it was clear that that's the direction they were going to go, he's sniffling, you see him holding his chest a lot when he's walking, he starts coughing more and more. I realized they're going to do that to Stebbins instead of Scram. I didn't like that idea at first, because in the book, Stebbins is like really weird. Garrity immediately just gets weird vibes from him. He's doing things differently from the beginning, like the fact that he's just eating these jelly sandwiches right from the get-go. He immediately gets a warning on purpose to test the limit for how slow he can go. And Garrity just thinks there's something off about him. He's usually toward the back of the pack by himself. He rarely talks to anybody. He'll sometimes talk to Garrity if Garrity initiates, but he's very above it all. He has extra knowledge that a lot of them don't have. He has all of this confidence. He firmly believes he's going to win. Garrity asks him at one point, you think you're going to win this, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm quite sure of it. He's this like ethereal being who serves as kind of the final boss that none of them can understand. He never really seems to get tired through most of the book. Far into the walk, Ray looks back and thinks, he looks exactly the same as he did at the start. I don't understand what his deal is. He's the guy who Ray is most worried about being able to beat. So when I saw that they were taking away that intimidation factor and making him sick, I wasn't really sure how to feel about that. But things changed as we got towards the ending. So the final three, in the book and the movie, it's Garrity, McVries, and Stebbins. In the book, McVries does exactly what he said he was going to do earlier. When he gets too tired, he's just going to sit down. He does exactly that, and he is killed. Garrity tries to help him, even though they made the pact earlier that they wouldn't help each other anymore, but to no avail. It doesn't work. Garrity and Stebbins are now the final two. I was wondering if they would change that for the movie, if they would make the two best friends, the emotional core, the final two, because that would probably be more satisfying and traditional narrative structure, you know? And they did. They did, in fact, change it. So instead, we have Stebbins give the same speech that he did in the book, where he reveals that he's the Major's son, and he wanted to use his wish in order to live with his father, and he feels like he's this rabbit who's been basically engineered to serve this purpose in the long walk. But instead of continuing on after that speech, his sickness gets to him. He realizes that he can't go on. He has a nice moment of humanity where he says, I'm glad it was you two, and he stops, and he's killed. And I'm fine with changing Garrity and McVries to being the final two, and this also makes me more okay with the fact that they changed certain aspects of Stebbins as a character. Since he no longer serves as the final boss that Garrity must walk down, the fact that they changed certain things about him doesn't really matter as much anymore. And in fact, Stebbins' death in the book is kind of weird. It feels like a pretty rushed ending. It's down to Garrity and Stebbins. Garrity decides to give up. He thinks Stebbins cannot be beaten. He will never get tired, so he's going to stop. But first, he goes up to Stebbins to tell him so, and when he does, they have a very short little exchange, and Stebbins just falls over dead. It's extremely sudden, it's very anticlimactic, and you're kind of left to just assume what happened. Does he just have an amazing poker face, and it was getting to him the whole time and he just wasn't showing it? Was it not getting to him the whole time, but it eventually finally just did? It's kind of weird, kind of rushed, doesn't work all that well, and it would have worked even less on screen. The book very much feels like, well, I decided that Ray is going to be the winner, so I have to kill Stebbins. So I'm just going to do that now. There's no, like, build up to it or real reason for it. He just drops dead now, and that would have been even weirder in the movie. So having him be a character who's still intimidating, who's still one of the finalists, but he's the guy who pretty clearly would have won if he hadn't had the bad luck of getting sick, and he actually has that nice moment with the other two before he goes. I'm fine with that. It's an alternate version of the character that I did enjoy. Now, the real shit. The ending. I already described the ending of the book. It's Garrity versus Stebbins. Stebbins just kind of dies. Garrity wins. And at the end, Garrity sees a dark figure ahead on the road. And he's so out of it at this point that he's thinking, who is that? Which one of the other competitors have I not walked down yet? Is that Olsen? Is that Baker? Who is that? I thought they all died. People are telling him that he won. They're grabbing him on the shoulder, trying to stop him. And he just keeps walking. He keeps walking towards this dark figure, and at the very end of the book, it says that he somehow found the strength to run. And it ends right there. And you don't know what his fate is. Is the specter in the distance death, and he's about to die? Does the figure in the distance just represent the fact that he's going to have PTSD, that the long walk is now going to be with him even after it ends? He's never actually going to get over it, and he'll either have some degree of trauma for the rest of his life, possibly even be like vegetative and completely broken as a person. You really don't know. But he keeps walking even after the long walk is over. It's not over for him because it has messed with his head so much. Now in the movie, you have Garrity versus McVries as the final two. McVries sits down in front of the crowd, which that's another big change between the two. In the book, there are a lot more crowds. People are allowed to start watching in person a lot sooner. You have a lot more crowd interactions, a lot more people like out there ready to watch people get their brains splattered on the road, which I think does work better, showing that people are thirsty for it and they're out there considering it a sport, cheering on these guys. But I understand why, for practical purposes in the movie, you didn't have crowds all over the place. I get it. But anyway, McVries sits down as he did in the book. Garrity tries to get him back up. And in this case, he actually succeeds. He convinces him to keep walking. But immediately after he does that, Garrity himself holds back, stops walking. And I had the idea, sure, it's possible they might change the winner, just to surprise us, but I didn't really think that they would. Even at that moment, I thought, okay, he's gonna now do the same thing. He'll convince Garrity to keep walking again. I really wasn't thinking that they were gonna kill him, but it was pretty damn quick. It was like almost immediately after he held back, you have like a moment to realize what he's doing, and then they shoot him. And I and other people who read the book gasp. Multiple gasps in this movie, in my theater. Gasps and sniffles and tears and pretty good audience reaction throughout. Before Garrity dies, McVries runs back over to him, and Garrity says the reason he did this is because McVries can see it, whereas he cannot. As in, McVries can see the light in things and in life and in this world, whereas Garrity cannot, and he thought it would be better for Pete to be the winner. They shoot Garrity one more time and he dies. McVries wins. Now the ending itself, I'm still unsure exactly how I feel about it. There are certain aspects from the book, there are certain new aspects. First of all, the Major asks him what he wants, what is his wish, and he carries on Garrity's will and he says, I wish for that carbine, that one right there, I want it right now. And they give it to him. He points it at the Major. And at this point, I have no idea how this movie is going to end because we have diverted from the book entirely. He pulls the trigger and shoots the Major, presumably dead. He looks off into the distance, into the darkness, sees whatever he sees in that darkness, just kind of like Ray did in the book, and continues walking. Title card. Speaking of which, we had a really good title card placement earlier in the movie too. I like how it waited until after the first death, The Long Walk. I love a good title drop. So there's kind of a lot to unpack here. I think it can be argued that McVree's killing the Major is ambiguous, because it feels kind of weird. After he shoots him, we don't see anybody else. Like, we don't know for sure if the squads would kill him or round him up or anything. We don't know what they would do. But we don't see any reactions at all. We don't see the soldiers or the crowd. He shoots the Major. Major goes down. After that, we just focus on Pete. And then he starts walking away. That feels really weird to me. Maybe that wasn't the intention. Maybe it was just the stylistic choice. Maybe it's representing Pete drowning everything else out. He's focused just on that in that moment and then absorbed right back into walking. He's not thinking about the soldiers or the crowd, so we don't see them. But the fact that that is so weird in its presentation makes me feel like it is possible that shooting the Major was in his head. But whether you believe he killed the Major or not, he then continues walking off into the dark just as Garrity did in the book, and so that is further ambiguous. Is he traumatized for life? He seemed pretty aware in the moment when he shot the Major. Is he just done with this shit and he wants to get away from people? And I'm divided on this ending. I feel like there are things that I would have done differently. So we had this ideological battle, Garrity and McVree's, the darkness and the light. Garrity allowed McVree's to win because he thought his view of the world was better. But immediately upon winning, we see that the Long Walk has broken McVree's to the point where he immediately ditches his idea for what his wish would be. And he focuses on hatred and revenge and immediately chooses to kill the Major. Even if actually doing it didn't happen, he did use his wish on the carbine. He would still get a ton of money, which he can use however he likes to do good if he can, but he did end up using his wish on the very thing he told Garrity not to do. I think this works. I think it's in line with the themes, how this event, this world, broke him down and kind of made him go against his own ideals by the end. For a sad story, that is a sad aspect of the ending. I'm just not entirely sure how it works with him then walking off into the darkness. Parts of the book there work better because we have the inner monologue. We're in Ray's head. We can hear what he's thinking about that dark figure, about what he needs to do. We realize through his own thoughts that he doesn't realize that the walk ended, that he is kind of broken. And I'm curious how non-book readers will react to the movie's ending when they don't have that. Like, I have that element of the book that I can transplant onto the movie and kind of speculate about McVree's thought process, whereas if you're just watching the movie, it's even more speculative. And I don't know if it's going to be too ambiguous for some people. It doesn't really work for me that he's so mentally broken that he feels like he has to keep walking, because he was very clearly cognizant enough to stop, ask for the carbine, point and shoot, and all of that. Even though I feel like the shooting of the Major is ambiguous, if I had to pick a side, I would say he probably did do it. And then I think my best guess for the actual ending is just, we don't know what happens to him next. He walks away, done with it all. Fuck this shit, I'm out. I don't care about any of you. I'm gonna keep walking as long as I feel like. And then what will his future hold? We just don't know. If you believe he actually did shoot the Major, then you have that moment of triumph, that moment of satisfaction, like, fuck you, Luke Skywalker. I don't know if that really fits the tone of the book. I don't think it would actually change anything in their world, and it's still a dark ending, but it is this one moment at the end where there were some people in my theater who were like, yeah, when the Major got killed. And I just don't know if this is the kind of story that needs that moment at the end. It's kind of supposed to be as bleak as can be. And I don't know what I would have done differently. I think ambiguity is really the only thing you can do at the end of this story, on some level at least. I do like the idea of him choosing the carbine, showing that the walk has changed him for the worse. But then after that, I don't know. Do you end it with him just pointing the gun at the Major? And you just cut it right there? You keep it completely ambiguous whether or not he did it? That might have been even more frustrating for people. I don't know. I actually don't know anything about how anybody feels about the ending. I haven't watched any reviews. I heard the early reactions, people just saying that they really liked the movie, but I haven't heard any thoughts on the ending, so I'm just giving you my own shit. I'm saying things, I'm spewing forth all of my thoughts, and hopefully it makes sense. Maybe you could have tried replicating the ending of the book more, where he continues walking, they try to stop him, he's not even really aware of what's happening, he just keeps going. And then you maybe end it with him finally getting a look of recognition back in his eyes that could give you hope for a second. But then his eyes immediately go to the carbine, and you realize what he's thinking, and that hope kind of turns to a certain level of despair. Maybe you end it right there. Or have him shoot the Major as he did, and then just have him drop to the ground. Drop to his knees, everybody surrounds him, not really sure what to do. And it just ends right there. I don't know, it's specifically him shooting the Major, how weird that scene kind of felt, how oddly ambiguous it felt, plus then incorporating the ending of the book with Garrity still walking. It was a weird mixture to me. I'm okay with it, but I feel like there were some little tweaks that I might have liked better. Please, of course, let me know your thoughts on everything surrounding the book and the movie down in the comments. What did you think of the ending and all of the changes? Were you okay with it, like Stebbins and Scram and the backstories and the winner? What is your interpretation of some of those elements of the ending? I had a really good time with the movie. I thought it was great. One of the better Stephen King adaptations, for sure. I was emotional. They really mined the hell out of Baker's death. Wow, that one was rough. They're just carrying him. His nose is gushing blood. He gives Garrity the necklace to give to his grandma. He asks them not to watch when it happens. That went on. It felt like he was dying for 10 minutes. It felt like it was going on, and I'm just sitting there in tears. That was effective. Sad movie, the kind where you're like, yeah, I'm excited to watch that again, which makes you sound kind of fucked up. Because the whole movie is just about systematically gunning these guys down one by one in their inevitable horrid fates as their feet and their minds are destroyed. And it's like, yeah, can't wait to watch it again. What do you want me to say? But I really liked it. I think the biggest change I would have made is just making it a little bit longer. I mentioned this in my regular review. I felt it was a little rushed at points. There's the part where they go up the hill, and only a couple of them have died by now. And then after the hill is done, there's like 18 of them left or something. Like most of them die on that hill. And I remember in the book them often saying things like that, like, oh, I think over half of them are gonna die on this hill, or over half of them are gonna die tonight. And they're always wrong. But in the movie, no, they were just right. A lot of them die really fast. And I was like, I wouldn't have minded it being a little longer. I wouldn't have minded kind of having to sit in the monotony of the walking and the brutality of this task a little bit longer and feel their bodies and their minds decay a little bit more, feel like we're in that situation. Not that it needed to be like crazy long, but I would have added a little bit more. But I think that's all I got for now. Please leave your thoughts on everything down in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It was kind of long, I think, just me sitting here saying shit. But thanks. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time.